All right. Hey guys, Natalie Cutler-Welsh here. I'm so excited to be with you today. This is part of my Impact Entrepreneur video series, and today I'm talking to Impact Entrepreneur Anna Squelch.
Hi everyone.
We are doing basically having conscious conversations, and today the topic that we chose is living in alignment. So I'm excited to dive into this topic with you. I know you're just back from 5 weeks in Bali. Very cool.
Yeah.
So Anna, before we get into that, can you give everyone a little backstory about what you're up to now and how did you come to be here?
Yes. So I'm a holistic health and life coach, but I spent my entire life in the corporate world until, until I think it's about 18 months ago or just over a year ago when I left the corporate world and just realized that was completely out of alignment with who I was as a person, with who I had become. And so on the last 18 months, I've set off on this journey of really figuring out what is in alignment for me, what that looks like, what that doesn't look like, and then also coaching my clients through that exact same process of really leaning into alignment in all areas of their life. So not just career, but also relationships, finances, their health, happiness, spirituality, all of those areas. So I'm a coach predominantly. I run retreats in Bali and New Zealand.
Fun.
And workshops and e-courses, and I'll have a podcast coming out very soon.
I know. I'm so excited to hear more about the podcast. So with your situation where you said you realized you're out of alignment, what were the tells, or what were the signs and symptoms of that?
Oh gosh. For me, they were very physical because I didn't grow up with any kind of spirituality or any kind of deep sense of self-awareness. And it was very much all of these physical symptoms started happening to me, which I later learned was anxiety. But at the time, I didn't have any dialogue around what I was feeling. And I would go to the doctors with these symptoms of, feeling very dizzy. I thought I had vertigo, out of breath. I was very out of breath. What else? Just feeling really out of sorts in my body and really heavy, and I knew that something wasn't right, and I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, so I thought, I had a brain tumor, vertigo. I went through all of these illnesses, and I went back to the doctor sort of 3 times over the course of maybe 6 months probably, and it was on the 3rd visit where the doctor said, look, you've come to see me the same time with the same symptoms over and over. You've got anxiety. I think you've got anxiety. And it was then that the penny actually dropped. And I was of the, anxiety doesn't happen to me. I'm not an anxious person, but it was comforting to finally have a diagnosis or a reason for feeling this way. And so it was that I was living in this world of very corporate, very fast paced, looking after other people's needs at the expense of my own. I had no self-care, no self-love, and also just didn't really have any big goals and aspirations. So just living completely incongruently with what was actually on my heart, which I didn't know what that was at the time.
Yeah, and I think, it's kind of sad, but I think a lot of people, would you say, are in that similar boat where they're kind of doing something that they've either always done, or maybe in a job and they don't love it, but they're scared to shift out of it, or they can't afford to shift out of it, or something like that. So that's awesome. So how did you what did you do next? You're like, okay, I've got anxiety, now what? Was the doctor helpful?
Yeah, the doctor was helpful. So they didn't recommend medication straight away, which I love, because, in America particularly, they kind of throw medication at you.
And in New Zealand, they do too.
But thankfully, I have a beautiful doctor, and they didn't want to throw medication at me, but they recommended a breathing coach, and they recommended ways to deal with my stress holistically. And then it was I didn't take action until a girlfriend of mine was studying to be a life coach, and she needed some guinea pigs. And so I put my hand up, just thinking that's exactly what I need. And it was in that session that she really invited me to dig into what it was that I was truly passionate about. And I'd always known that I was passionate about health and wellness, but I was raised, not raised by my grandmother, but my grandmother paid for my education, and it was always very she wanted me to have a safe job behind a desk. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm very creative. I wanted to be an interior designer or a photographer or a flight attendant, and she was always very, you need a safe, comfortable job. And I think that's so common. And with a lot of my clients that I work with, we are a product of our parents' conditioning. You know, we ultimately choose a career path, even subconsciously or unconsciously, that would make them happy at the expense of pursuing our own dreams, because that's deemed as, you know, unsafe, risky, doesn't make enough money, because they don't have examples of that working in their generation. And so I've gone off on a tangent, but it was this,
no, it's great. It's super relevant as to how people end up in that position.
Yeah. And so, and now I can spot it so fast in people. Like I can tell that they have something burning on their heart, but they've got these onion layers of like fear and scarcity mindset and just lack of belief in themselves. And so this this life coach asked me to look at this course that I had looked at doing, which was IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is based in New York. And it's something I'd looked into 5 years prior, couldn't afford it at the time, but I could now afford this course. And so I literally enrolled a month later, which was March 2017. It's a 1-year course. So over the course of that next year, while working in that corporate job, I completely just started following this path of like health and wellness and coaching and just spirituality and like diving into all this personal development, and I've never looked back.
There you go. That's awesome. And that's so good that here's the thing though, you were like, the guinea pig thing. Yeah. You put yourself out there. You were like, you know what? Yeah, me, choose me. And I think sometimes people are out of alignment. They may or may not realize, but some of them just like, they don't do anything about it. So you were like, yeah, me. And it was great that your friend happened to be doing that course and everything. Hey, so for you guys that are watching, if you're on the Facebook Live or watching the replay, same thing with the Zoom call, comment below. We would love to know, does this resonate with you? Like, has there been a time in your life when you felt like you were out of alignment? I mean, maybe it's now, maybe it's not, but where you felt like you weren't doing what was truly you? Or I think a lot of people go like, I don't know what my purpose is, which is a lot of pressure to feel like you know what your purpose is. So we can talk about that. But you guys, if you ever feel like you're out of alignment, let us know. Add some comments. We'd love to hear some of your guys' examples. I think I'd love to give some tips, because we're all about helping people with health and happiness in New Zealand and just being more healthy and happy. Obviously, alignment is part of that. What are some ways people can shift into alignment? Or, you know, you talked about the onion and the layers. Do you find a lot of people are like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what makes me happy, because they're just it's so ingrained in doing what they need to do.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so many things I'd like to say on that. Firstly, it's a lot of people think that it's about adding things when really it's about stripping away. So finding alignment it's not about like, you know, buying it can be about buying the courses and the coaches and all that stuff, but it's not about, you know, adding extra stuff onto your life. It's about stripping away the stuff that is incongruent and doesn't align with your values. And that might be friendships, that might be relationships, food, certain foods, habits, beliefs. Like there's so much stripping away on this journey. And on the topic of purpose, I'm reading anew at the moment by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about we have an inner purpose and we have an outer purpose. And our inner purpose is being, and our outer purpose is doing. And so much of us are driven by our outer purpose. It's like, I'm successful because I am a XYZ. And it's very tied to our title, our status, our monetary gain, all of that kind of stuff. But I teach people that your purpose might be being a wonderful mother. It might be being a courageous lover or best friend, or it might be leaving a delicate footprint on the earth. Your purpose doesn't have to be a fancy title or tied to an amount of money that you earn. For me, my purpose is just like helping people find alignment in their lives, coincidentally. So to answer your question, I think people ultimately know what it is that lights them up, but there's too much noise and clutter of fear and other people's expectations and all of that stuff. So it's a stripping away job.
Yeah, that's awesome. I made that note because I'm gonna make up some notes for people at the end. But stripping away. So yeah, just realizing what in your life is not serving you, I guess, or moving you towards where you want. I mean, it's interesting about the titles and things. Definitely for me, when I was a new mom, and I'd be at, you know, like with my baby at the coffee group or whatever, and I felt like, oh, I'm a mom, but I used to be a project manager. Like I felt like I had to tell them that I used to have this important job. And
Validation.
I really, really did that. And I really struggled with just the identity piece.
Yeah.
And I think probably a lot of people that, that whole motherhood identity thing, it's a whole another topic. In fact, you guys check out the other call that I did recently about the conscious conversation that I did about self-love and self-care, because we do dive into that a little bit more around identity. But I think a lot of people, especially maybe in the corporate workplace, I haven't been in the corporate scene since, 2004 or something, but hierarchy. I mean, the hierarchy thing, and the kind of like, you need to report to that person. Is that part of the alignment thing, or is it more about what they're actually doing in their role day to day?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was an executive assistant, so I was the support person for busy executives, and I did that for 7 years in Auckland, Sydney, and London. So each very different circumstances. In London, you're very much seen as like the girl that gets the coffee. In Auckland, thankfully, in places that I've worked, I haven't been treated that way. But I think that executive assistants and anyone in that kind of support role, there's still this stigma that they are just like the help. And they are, it's not really an empowering role, and you don't get empowered by being in that role. And so you have to learn to empower yourself through that role. But I found that I had this, I felt like people didn't really understand the value that I was actually bringing to the business. I don't think that executive assistants necessarily are compensated for the value that they actually bring. And I forget your question now.
Well, did you then feel like you had to prove yourself?
Yeah.
Like it was so, I was just thinking about, because when you're right, we can all relate, right? When we're in a job or in a position, even if it's a volunteer position, where you feel like your knowledge, your skills, your experience, your background is not being acknowledged and recognized. That can cause inner turmoil and malalignment. Yeah,
big time. And I think that's why it became such physical symptoms to me as well. And when I told management in my company that I was feeling this way, it wasn't kind of handled in the best way. And that's why I'm on such a mission. I speak to businesses in Auckland for Mental Health Week about how employees can have those conversations safely about their mental health, and then how the employers should treat the staff in those conversations, because it wasn't the blame of my company. They just don't have that education. New Zealand has not been educating businesses about how to treat their employees around mental health. We're great at prevention. We're great at cure. We're not great at prevention.
Yeah. And then Susan Somerville, who I interviewed the other week about ecotherapy, she also mentioned that, we're really great at occupational safety and health. We've got the safety book sorted. Now we're finally moving into the health realm. So like you said, the employers, no fault of their own, exactly, don't have the experience on how to deal with this stuff. And anxiety is on the rise. Like it's I don't know what the word is. It's really on the rise. Epidemic. Thank you. And after I recorded with Susan, I was telling you this beforehand, she's leaned in and she said to me, you know what? This generation, this is crazy, you guys, listen to this. This generation of kids has a shorter life expectancy than we do.
That's scary.
And I was like, are you kidding? I don't know why it surprised me so much, because if you think about it, right? Screens, you were saying before, diet, like all, sedentary lifestyle. Yeah. We shouldn't be surprised, but that is a real warning sign.
Yeah. And what is it going to take for us to actually act on it?
Yeah. What is it? What is it going to take, you guys?
And so for me, I've now been living with diagnosed anxiety for about a year, on medication for a year. And I finally feel that I'm at a place where anxiety is just kind of something that occurs very sporadically. It's not a daily thing anymore. It's something that I manage very well now through my own practices and my thought process when I'm experiencing anxiety. And I credit that to stepping into alignment and only following alignment in my life. And that meant removing friends. That meant, going long periods of time without a relationship because I needed to work on myself first. And that meant stepping away from so many things in my life that were just completely incongruent. And it had to start with my self-awareness game and just being really self-aware of what felt like a yes and what felt like a no, and masses of intuition as well.
So kind of like this internal compass when you said what feels like a yes, what feels like a no.
Yeah.
And that takes courage, to shed those relationships, those habits, those mindset things. It takes practice.
Yeah.
And then do you find sometimes you lapse you kind of lapse into, you got to catch yourself and bring it back.
Yeah. But I'm also not, it's about the stories we tell ourselves when we lapse. Like an unconscious person might say, oh God, I'm such, I just mess up all the time and I don't deserve to be happy and blah, blah, blah. But for me, I'm like, oh, I've lapsed. Okay, that's information. What do I do with this? Course correct.
Yeah.
Like it's so quick now because I've built that like inner resilience of being able to bring myself back on track. But 100% all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. So what else? So you talked a lot about stripping away, which I love that whole concept, and that's a massive area. But is there anything else that people can do in their own life to stay in alignment, or to figure out what is their passion or their, the thing that, what is alignment to them?
Yeah, so I have a worksheet which I can send you and you can share with your community. But basically, it's it breaks down each area of your life. So it's like health, finances, relationships, family, like everything, career, spirituality, and then you give each of those areas a rating today, how you feel in each of those areas today, 0 to 10, but you can't use the number 7,
okay,
which really trips people up because people immediately want to just go, meh, 7, like 7's very middle of the road, and so can't use the 7. But you rate each of those areas. So how am I feeling about my finances? Mm-hmm. And it's not what do my finances look like. It's like, how do I feel about abundance and prosperity and all of that? How do I feel in the area of romance in my life? And I might be single, but what is my, how do I think about men or women or whatever? Mm-hmm. And so you rate each of those areas and then write a little sentence about what would it take to get you to a 10.
Yeah.
And 10 might not be the ultimate goal. It's not, we don't want people to be like constantly striving for 10, but it's just an awareness piece.
Yeah.
Okay, what is lacking? What do I need more of in my life? What do I need less of in my life? And so I encourage people to use that worksheet to give them an idea of where they're at now, and then to redo it in like a month's time or 3 months' time, and just to track their, I guess, progress along the way. Because awareness, we can't intervene in a world we can't see, and awareness is just so key.
I love that, because we're calling this a conscious conversation, and that's a conscious like activity where you're actually thinking, how do I feel currently, and how do I want to feel? And I love that, because I often say to people, whatever, just when I'm working with them, or just even generally day to day, how do you want to feel? And everything coming back, I think, to how do they want to feel, and then figuring out what do they need to do, or what friendships do they not want to have as a result, or that'll keep them, move them towards feeling those ways. So that would be awesome. We would love to try. We would love to try that worksheet. I'm totally going to do it. I think that's really great, because I think a lot of people, I don't know, they do the New Year's thing, like they do the New Year's check-in, and then they like just get on with life, and then the year goes by, and in December they're like, oh, I'm at the same place I was last year. Or so I feel like it's good to have these kind of structured activities that help us to just reconnect. How do we want to feel? Yeah, so that would be amazing.
Yeah, and I think there's this kind of misconception, like in this personal development space, that you can just like sit and like vision and manifest and like I'll click my fingers and something will happen because I've written it in my journal or I've like thought about it. But people forget that you actually have to take action. So it's about taking action, and that's what this worksheet and other activities that we do are all about. So that's often the missing step. And the second missing ingredient is self-belief. So believing that you can live a life that's in alignment, and then what's one action step that I can take today towards that?
I love the languaging around that, because I am about action, but I think you're right. You don't want to just take action. You want to take intentional action.
Aligned, committed action.
Yes, aligned, committed action. Love that.
ACA.
Can you tell us about the Anxiety Anonymous and how that came about and how it was a huge hit?
Yeah, so last year I ran
hey, Rocky,
2 workshops with a couple of girlfriends who I actually met in a workplace. We all worked together. And we all developed anxiety, or all had anxiety.
It's like, when women get their period at the same time.
Yeah,
like we all get anxiety.
And we somehow found that out about each other, I guess, because we were all into wellness as well. So we all just I think we went to a yoga class together actually one night after work, and then this all came to the surface, as it does. Every great idea starts in a yoga class, right? And I said, I would just love to like sit in a room with women taking their masks off and just being able to have really conscious conversations about anxiety and about how we're feeling. And so the concept of that event was born, and we ran our first one in, I think, July last year, and then one in October. And it was essentially 20 women in a room, maybe 30, And then the three of us, so Victoria Fruin, myself, and Christy von Minden, all just really like candidly sharing our journeys through anxiety, what that looked like for us, what that felt like for us, the impact that it had on our families, and then how we kind of managed that day to day. So we just got such incredible feedback from those events, and I would love to run them again. But coming into 2019, I was kind of like, do I still want to talk about anxiety? I don't want to be like the anxiety girl. Is that still relevant for me? And so we're looking at ways of how we can kind of evolve that and keep that conversation going, because it was so important.
I think the fact that you had such a response from people wanting to come to that. And like we were saying before, anxiety is on the rise. Well, I don't know. I think it is on the rise, definitely. Yeah. But I also think maybe people are more open, or it's more okay to acknowledge the anxiety. Yeah. So, which is good. But the fact that you had so many people coming, it's like people want help in this area. Yeah. And so obviously hearing stories and things from other people, and then also strategies, tools that can help them. I think it's brilliant. Yeah. But yeah, at the same time, you don't want to make your life more anxious by trying to do too much. So a lot of people do, especially people, entrepreneurs in business. We want to help people. Something resonates. I've got another friend, she used to do lots of these challenges, right? And she would run. People loved it. It was really helpful. It was fitness, mindset, all that jazz. And then she ended up doing them back to back to back, and she totally burnt herself out. So it's like you have to look after number one while trying to help other people. Yeah. Which is a deal.
But there's definitely more workshops that have evolved out of that. So I now have a workshop called The Art of Self-Love, which I know you're all about. Yay. And I ran my first one actually like 2 days before I flew to Bali. And it was incredible, just the ultimate like heartwarming experience for me to lead that. And so I have my next one coming up in Auckland on the 18th of May. Yay. And then I'm traveling to the Mount to run that down there. So
yay. Okay, cool. So we're going to put the links below. Is it on your website or something? How can they find you or follow you?
Yeah, so my website is consciousworldwellness.com. And then on Instagram, I'm Anna Squelch.
Yay. Okay, that's cool. So the art of self-love, I love that. That's amazing. And what about your retreats? Because for me, I'm going on this cruise soon, which I'm super excited about. But I also love the idea of going on a retreat that I didn't organize. Like just something that I'm just going as a person. I'm not in charge. I'm not speaking. I'm just like learning. I think it's really important that we put ourselves in that position as well. So what have you got coming up in 2019 or 2020 with the retreats?
Yeah, so last year I ran 2 retreats in Bali and one in Waihi in New Zealand. So those were amazing, a massive learning experience. This year I'm running a retreat in winter in July in Waihi. So that's going to be basically a winter wellness retreat, and it's called Recharge. So it's all about disconnecting to reconnect, because we're so connected now to technology and like everything, but we're really disconnected from ourselves. So that's going to be a really intimate experience for 5 women in my holiday home in Waihi.
Nice.
Surrounded by nature and just eating delicious plant-based food, cleansing, and just really connecting with other women and learning about how to nourish ourselves emotionally and physically.
That sounds so amazing. So whether you guys are going to be at that retreat or just day to day, I think those tips are really important about like nourishing yourself, spending time in nature. We know how important that is, and the mindset stuff. So just to wrap up, what is something that you do? You mentioned journaling before. What is something that you do, like maybe daily ritual or to stay, I guess, in alignment and to look after yourself?
Yeah. So for me now, it's having that awareness that I cannot work for 8 hours. I just cannot. And so it's creating lots of white space in my day and in my week where I just have time to kind of pause and reflect and check in with how I'm feeling. That is so important. And that comes back to that, like saying no to things. And so I've now really adopted that, like I'm fine with saying no to things because that's such a massive form of self-care. Daily, I try and meditate daily. I try and move my body daily. I connect with my dogs daily. They're a massive form of, love and serotonin for me. Just eating really well and just really checking in with my thoughts and like how I'm feeling emotionally on a day-to-day basis. It's simple stuff. Like I don't believe in the big fancy stuff. It's all just simple stuff.
I think that what you said, the white spaces, I wrote that down, because again, we all know that it's good to have a positive mindset and to, take time for yourself and stuff, but actually calling it white spaces. I used to actually put in my calendar, drink water, and I would like make it a recurring date with myself just to make sure I stay hydrated. But I think it's so good. And someone like you is so good for me because, you know, I'm such a doer, I'm such a go-getter and all that. And I could work for 10 hours a day, like no problem. And I said to my husband, I just want to work till 5 o'clock, 2 days a week. That would be so amazing, you know, because I'm like the primary caregiver. But I think sometimes making sure that we are coming back to looking after number one and putting time, I actually need to schedule it, time to just have nothing. Because otherwise, for me, I book back to back to back, busy all day, talking to people all day. I've never burnt out. I don't know if I will, but I think that this is such a good reminder for me and hopefully for a lot of people listening as well.
And I read a lot of articles on medium.com about like CEOs and how successful people are successful and what their morning routines are and all that kind of stuff. And I was reading one recently saying that like 10 minutes of reflection at the end of each day has made top CEOs like so much, you know, smarter and so much better with their time. And so just like that simple thing of taking 10 minutes a day where you reflect on your day, you know, what inspired me today, what drained me of my energy today, and what's my intention going into tomorrow, or what did I learn about myself today as well? That's a good question.
That is awesome. I'm actually going to start doing that. Thank you for that tip. I'm going to do that before I do school pickup, because what I normally do is at the end of the day, lying in bed, like at night, which is really for me 10:30, you know, I'm not like a total night owl, but I'm not an early to bed person. And I lie in bed and I do what went well. What went well. And it's a game I play with my child, but I also do it by myself. What went well today? And I bring to mind, like I actually see it again. I bring to mind what went well that day. And I find that is really good for the positive, just going to bed in a positive space instead of going, oh, I didn't do this, and oh darn, I didn't do that, and berating yourself, which I think some people maybe do. So I want to, you guys, that's so easy to just do what went well before you go to bed. But I'm going to add, I know we're supposed to be stripping things back, but I'm going to add that for me, before I finish my work day, to do the reflections that you talked about, which I think is really, really great. When I start my mentoring sessions, I always start with celebrations and 1 to 5s, and I get them to say, right, before we get into the talking, like, hang on, celebrations and 1 to 5. What have you got in your life or business to celebrate? And how are you going on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being crappy, 5 being awesome. I do that all the time. And I think that's another good way to just check in. So daily reflections, you guys, white spaces, stripping away. These are some of the awesome hot tips from Anna Squelch today. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I would just say, like, if for anyone who is on a journey of transformation or, you know, acknowledges that they want to change something in their life, you just have to remember to have fun with it as well, because we're so serious about it, and we're so, you know, we beat ourselves up for not hitting the targets or, you know, not evolving quickly enough. But fun, like, just introduce play and joy and creativity into the process by making sure that you have some form of play every day. For me, it's my dogs, and it will be a lot more fun.
That is an awesome tip. I love fun is all good, because we need to remember that, you know, bring back the child within and not be too serious. Awesome. Such a good note to end on. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. And you guys can check out more episodes of the Impact Entrepreneur series, all about conscious conversations to help New Zealand and everyone be more happy and healthy. See ya. Bye.